Hello, I'm Andy Mock with CATS. I'm the Senior Project Manager for the LYNX Silverline project. Thank you for attending the sixth and final public meeting for the Silverline. This meeting is focused on Union County in the section between Matthews and Indian Trail. Public meetings 1 through 5 focus on everything from the west side in Belmont, the whole way through Center City, Charlotte, and terminated at the Union County line in Matthews. They're available on our YouTube page if you'd like to watch any of those other videos. Before we get into the overview video and the rest of the program tonight, just to give a very brief overview of what the Silverline is, and then there'll be some follow-up information on some videos and other information that we'll provide. So the Silverline is a transformational 26-mile light rail project which spans from Belmont through Gaston County through the city of Charlotte and ends at CPCC with the potential extension in Union County. That's what we're talking about tonight. Before we start the meeting, I suggest that you go to our website. That's www.ridetransit.org/LYNX to follow along, and also to be able to provide comments and to use our virtual online map to as you can pan around and look at the other alternatives and design options that we're currently considering. Next slide. So for our panelists, here's just some notes after this is our 6th time. So the 5 other times we've learned a couple things. Panelists, please remain on mute until the QA portion of the meeting. Participants, please log into your Gmail or your YouTube account to participate in the live Q&A. Log off any organizational VPNs for better performance, and post your questions in the chat box to be answered at the end of the meeting. Very brief agenda. We're going to show you a brief project overview video, which shows the definition of what the Silverline is and kind of the status and process we're going through. Then we're going to do a focus area presentation where I'll actually walk all the participants through the online public engagement materials that we put on for review. And then we're going to do a live Q&A from our panel focused on the information that we just presented. Hello, I'm Andy Mock, the LYNX Silverline Senior Project Manager. This video is the first in a series of videos and will provide an overview of the proposed LYNX Silverline light rail project. We are currently in the transportation planning or pre-project development phase of work, and we are conducting early scoping in coordination with the Federal Transit Administration, referred to as FTA. We will discuss more about early scoping later on, as well as provide you with an update on progress since March of 2020 and explain how you can provide input. I'd like to introduce you to our project team. First, leading the LYNX Silverline Light Rail project is myself and Jenna Nichols, the Deputy Project Manager. Ajanel Poole is the CATS Public and Community Relations Specialist dedicated to the project. The LYNX Silverline Light Rail is part of a larger community program which includes related but separate studies. The Trans-Oriented Development Study, referred to as TOD, as well as a rail trail study. John Howard is the project manager for the TOD study, and Jason Lawrence is the project manager for the rail trail project study. There will be more to come on the TOD and rail trail planning in the future, but today, as a part of early scoping, we are focused on the light rail project. Now that you've met the team, let's talk about the actual LYNX Silverline light rail project. The LYNX Silverline is a proposed 26-mile light rail project from the city of Belmont through Center City, Charlotte, and the town of Matthews, with a potential extension into Union County. We are growing as a region, and coordination is key. Throughout the project, we will coordinate efforts with several other programs, agencies, and projects. Currently, CATS and FTA are conducting early scoping. Yes, we recognize it's a very technical term, but essentially it means that we are seeking your feedback on the ongoing planning analysis to better define the project before entering project development in the National Environmental Policy Act, referred to as NEPA. Let's talk about how we got to this point. Rapid transit has been discussed in Charlotte for decades. In 1998, the City of Charlotte prepared the 2025 Integrated Transit Land Use Plan, which proposed using rapid transit to support focusing future growth in Charlotte's key centers and corridors. The West Corridor, along Wilkinson Boulevard, in the southeast corridor along Independence Boulevard were two of the identified corridors. Additional planning efforts have occurred, and the plan is now referred to as the 2030 Transit System Plan. In 2016, CATS completed the Southeast Corridor Transit Study, which considered various transit technologies and alignments. The study included a detailed technical evaluation and extensive public and stakeholder engagement. Our policy board, referred to as the Metropolitan Transit Commission, or MTC, adopted an LPA, short for Locally Preferred Alternative, for a light rail project in the 13-mile Southeast Corridor from Center City, Charlotte, to the Mecklenburg and Union County border. More recently, CATS completed the LYNX system update, which studied various technologies and alignment alternatives for the West Corridor and Center City, Charlotte. In February 2019, the MTC adopted a light rail LPA for the West Corridor and combined it with the Southeast Corridor LPA to make one continuous 26-mile light rail corridor from Belmont to Matthews, with a potential extension into Union County, known as the LYNX Silver Line. Now we are assessing new opportunities and risks in order to refine the LPA and help determine the alignment and options that may be carried forward into environmental review under NEPA. During the early scoping process, we start to develop the purpose and need statement, which is consistent with previously identified public and stakeholder goals. The purpose and need statement defines the fundamental reason why the project is being proposed, and it's the foundation for the environmental review process. The needs are the why the proposed action is needed, and the purpose is the what CATS intends to accomplish. The purpose and need will be refined during planning and through environmental review, with additional input from the public, stakeholders, and regulatory agencies. This screen shows identified preliminary transportation needs in the LYNX Silver Line corridor. The preliminary purpose of the LYNX Silver Line project is to provide high-capacity transit service in dedicated right-of-way along identified roadways that address the desired transportation outcome shown on the screen. The full preliminary purpose and needs statement is available in the online open house. Let us know if you have any comments in the online survey, also available in the online open house. You may be asking yourself, why are we refining the alignment if it was adopted by the MTC, the CATS Policy Board? Although some of the alignment was adopted in 2019, the Southeast Corridor was adopted in 2016. Just think about how much of our infrastructure changed in the region over the last 4 years. In that time, a lot of construction has occurred. We opened the LYNX Blue Line extension and have learned so much that we can bring to this project. Additionally, we will be conducting additional engineering and environmental evaluations to learn more about the corridor and continue asking for your input. Now that you know why we are looking at refinements, let's talk about the decision-making process. We want to maximize the benefits of the proposed project while minimizing the risks. We're evaluating many factors as we refine the LPA, again, the locally preferred alternative, including public input, design constraints, environmental considerations, a quality rider experience, coordination with other projects, and land use surrounding the potential stations. We have developed several alignment refinement options for your review. These options may enhance benefits or address risks associated with the LPA. However, the alignment options also have their own pros and cons, as described in the interactive comment map on the online open house. As referenced earlier, we have been and will continue to think about environmental resources as we refine the LPA and move into environmental review under NEPA. We are looking for your feedback on the environmental considerations that we have identified and whether there are more to consider. Overall, we're asking you to provide input on a number of critical factors. Since the corridor is quite long, at approximately 26 miles, we have broken it up into 6 focus areas. You can get more detailed information about the alignment options within each focus area by using the interactive comment map in the online open house. There are short videos that describe pros and cons of the alignment options for each focus area. Please review the videos at your convenience, available in the online open house from August 31st to October 14th. Once you review all the information, let us know what you think. There are a number of ways you can provide your input. Browse around the online open house to learn more about the project. Leave comments on the interactive comment map and take the public survey. We are hosting live virtual public meetings on September 15th, 16th, 17th, 22nd, 24th, and 29th at 5:30 p.m. Each of these meetings will include this general project overview, plus a more detailed discussion on one of the focus areas. Check the project website, ridetransit.org/LYNX to learn more about how you can access the meetings and the focus areas that will be featured in each one. Additionally, you can request a virtual meeting with our team for your business or neighborhood group by contacting us via email at lynxsilverline@publicinput.com or the CATS customer service via phone at 704-336-RIDE. That's 704-336-7433. If you prefer to submit a hard copy of your comments, you can send a letter to CATS, care of Agenel Pool, at 600 East 4th Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202. Public comments must be submitted by October 14th, as we will conclude the early scoping period. The feedback we receive from you will help us make decisions as we move into next steps. In 2021, the team plans to have a refined LPA that we will present for adoption by the MTC and carry forward into the detailed NEPA environmental review process. Prior to adoption by the MTC, we will conduct another round of public meetings to share our recommendations. Depending on the public and agency input, there may be more than one option in certain locations. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you in advance for sharing your input with us. Your feedback will help to shape and create a light rail line that will serve our region for many generations to come. Thank you everyone for your attention on that video. I'm just now going to walk through some of our online materials that we put up for early scoping. Kind of show you kind of how to get there, how to get to these locations, and also how you can provide public input through this public engagement process and where you can find a virtual online material. So a great starting place is the CATS homepage, which is www.ridetransit.org. And if you go to the LYNX Silverline tab, then that will take you to this website right here, where it'll give you a kind of an overview. It's kind of a gateway to the online open house. But if you want to go down and kind of read more about some of the benefits of the LYNX Silverline, some of the connections that you will be able to make through the Silverline project, it's here, along with some definitions of some of the technical terms we're using, pre-project development, scoping, those sort of things, and then a map, and also information about the other public meetings. Now, this is the last one, so the other ones really don't apply, but there's also a link to get to the YouTube page if you'd like to watch those from the past. So if you were to go to start here and click on this online open house tab, it would take you to the main public engagement tool that we developed for this virtual process. The first landing page is really this kind of project overview tab on the top left side here. And that provides you a very, some videos kind of giving you some very high level overview of what the project is and how you can provide engagement. Another map, the same video that we watched, you just watched a minute ago, is on here. So if you'd like to watch that again to refresh your memory, along with some a nice flow chart showing all the project history and all the previous studies that we used to kind of come up with the locally preferred alternative and the alignments that we're evaluating. So if you want to kind of follow along with this, and kind of showing you from way back when we got the integrated transit land use plan in 1998 through the various system updates, now ultimately up to now where we are, which is refining the LPA through this process. Also, if you'd like to get into the details, you can also read the reports, download these reports here, so you can kind of get comfortable with those. There's also a lot of good information about the preliminary purpose and need, very important process and very important language that we develop as we go more into a federal environmental process. So this is very important for us. So please take a moment to review this and also provide any sort of comments through the survey tool, which I'll go through in a moment. And so again, more kind of environmental language and overview of some of the alternatives and how we kind of got here. And then another kind of description of all the environmental consideration that we'll be looking at through this process as this project marches on through, as the locally preferred alternative is refined. We'll be evaluating the final LPA against impacts to energy or safety, security, utilities, those sorts of things. And then a nice little timeline showing you kind of where we are and all the activities we're doing during this early stage, and then moving into the next stage of project development, which is when we kind of more formally enter into the Federal Transit Administration process, all along undergirded by public engagement is kind of the main tool how we get there. So once you kind of go through that overview, you kind of get a kind of an overview of where we are. Next good thing to do is to go through the virtual online map, and this is probably the lion's share what most people want to see and care about, and this is what most of the program is going to be about tonight. So the best way to navigate this tool is really using the right side, this gray bar. So if you want to zoom out or zoom in, this gray bar will take you to certain places or map extents. We're on the last one, so it would be the bottom button. Also, there's this box right here, this white box, also provides a lot of good information about what it is we're trying to accomplish. So really, that we lead with each one of these focus areas with the question of, should the LYNX Silver Line extend into Indian Trail? Extend to Indian Trail. That's kind of the question that we're evaluating. So there's some language in here about how, some details about that. Also, and I'll get into some of this in a moment, this is kind of shows the alignment alternatives that or the options we're going to evaluate in a moment. There's also a video that we did, which is basically a voiceover video of us panning over these areas. So if you'd like to, refresh your memory on any of the stuff, or the pros and cons, it'll be all on this video. But to kind of get into the weeds, let me kind of go through the alternatives or the design options that we have today. Now, I will say, Focus Area 6 is a little different than all the other focus areas because there is no locally preferred alternative in this area. Back in 2019, the Metropolitan Transit Commission identified a kind of a desire to study an alignment that goes in Union County, but there is no locally preferred alternative that terminates at CPCC right here. So all the other focus areas have a starting place, and that is the purple line is the LPA. So we're through this process, we intend to adopt a new LPA. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through some of the options that are on the table so you can kind of understand the finer points of them. And then that allows you some information you can provide your comments. And that will help us identify the appropriate locally preferred alternative moving forward. So starting here at I-485, the purple line is the LPA. The yellow line are design options to the LPA that were evaluated for different reasons. I'll start with the top alignment, which comes off of the LPA, crosses Campus Ridge Road, and parallels CPCC Lane. This alignment then kind of turns and then follows Independence Boulevard or Guillen Lane, and bridges over Stallings Road. And this is right at the edge of the Independence Freeway section. And then this is where the hospital, the new hospital, Atrium Hospital, is under construction. I'm not sure exactly when it's opening, but it's in this location. We intend to have a station in this area, exactly where this dot shows it here, but it could be any number of places. And it's also, we think it's a good location for a park and ride somewhere in this area because there's so much traffic on Stallings and Independence Boulevard that we feel like we could really pick up a lot of park and ride customers who want to get out of their car and get on the train. It then continues to follow along Independence Boulevard, and then turns and parallels Chestnut Parkway, which takes you right down to Indian Trail Town Hall with the station right here. So if we were to go into our pros and cons, so at a high level, we went through the analysis and kind of identified the kind of at a high level so the public could understand what are the pros and what are the cons of each one of the alignments so they could be compared against each other. So one of the pros of this one is that there's not many driveways that it's impacting or intersections. So we're able to kind of get through here, and that allows us to have more reliability of our train system. So that's a good thing. Less driveways, less cross streets. That's great. It also, because it's along Independence, there's greater visibility for a park and ride. So if we build a parking garage in this area, it'd be very visible from Independence Boulevard and from Stallings Road, so people wouldn't have to look for it and they could easily find it, and it's a good incentive for them to get out of their vehicle. However, there's not as many connections to new development opportunities along this area. So it's kind of is what it is along Independence Boulevard at this point. There's also limited space for light rail along Chestnut Parkway. So there is a setback along Chestnut Parkway, but we don't think it's going to be sufficient. So there'd have to be some kind of a reimagining of what Chestnut Parkway could be if we were to go with this alignment. This also introduces this pretty severe curve in this area. So this curvy alignment would then force the light rail to slow down and may increase our operating costs to maintain this curve. So that's one of the downsides of this alternative. So if we could look at an alternative that is similar, but maybe mitigates against some of those concerns, I'll kind of zoom in for a second. Everything else is the same on this alternative to the other, except for right after the hospital, the light rail comes across country and then parallels Matthews Indian Trail Road with a station near Indian Trail Town Hall. And that would be on the side of the road, on the northern, or I guess the northeastern side. So it's very similar up to there. It's just mitigates some of those issues. So from a high level, if we look at a lot of the things are the same as far as the pros and cons, especially in this area. So we don't have as many at-grade intersections or impacts to traffic. So that's a good thing. It does also, again, has a greater visibility for a park and ride, so folks can find us, and it provides a very direct access to Matthews or to Indian Trail Town Hall. So it's right there, which is a good choice for us. But similar to the other one, it kind of misses some of the energy that seems to be happening along Matthews Indian Trail Road by being along Independence. So another option to that, which we're calling option 2, and this has been discussed with some of the, all these have been discussed with town staff and with some of the folks at Atrium. So there's been a lot of talk about these options. So this one, similar along the terminus, extending from the terminus across Campus Ridge, along CPCC lane. But then instead of going along Independence, it then goes to the right and parallels Matthews Indian Trail Road, and then bridges over Stallings Road. These two lines are just indicate different kind of configuration options. We're not saying there's two separate alignments. There's two tracks, but they're not two separate guideways. Just to clarify that. With a station near Stallings Road, to serve the Atrium Hospital, along Matthews Indian Trail Road, with a station that's similar to that of the option 1B, which is right next to Indian Trail Town Hall. So for pros and cons, the big pro is that it really kind of captures some of the energy that seems to be happening with the station at Stallings Road, and Stallings and Matthews Indian Trail Road is seems like a lot of things happening with the hospital and some of the redevelopment opportunities there. So it provides a pretty good opportunity to capitalize that and to serve that development. However, it does require the reconstruction and widening of Matthews Indian Trail Road. So part of this would be a widening of the street to actually incorporate light rail into the side or the center. It would also potentially reroute driveways and side streets. So we would have to figure out how the access would work along this area. So we might have to rebuild driveways and side street and reconfigure them. And if we were to build a park and ride for the station, it wouldn't be quite as visible for the folks on Independence Boulevard. So that's kind of at a high level as folks are thinking about the alternatives in these separate alignments, kind of just a way to kind of think about some of the the way that we're looking at these from a pro and con list, and help you understand what we're talking about, and also, maybe inform you as you're commenting and reviewing these. But as we go down further and talk about public engagement process, so this is the video I talked about. You feel free to watch that in your free time. We also have the comment form. Every focus area has its own comment form. You can kind of put in your information, your priorities about what's more important to you in this focus area. Some people have different priorities in different focus areas, so that's why we kind of did like this. But if you're concerned about travel time and you're getting a fast trip to downtown, then you might have one priority versus cost, maybe a different priority, or redevelopment might be a third priority. And then finally, under the Tell Us More tab, this is the main the main survey that we're putting out. And so again, this survey is will be up till October 14th, 2020. And once we close early scoping, we'll take that down. And so if you click on that tab on the bottom, it'll then take you directly to this public survey website where you can put in your information and provide some more, some high-level commentary on the purpose and need. And if you have any other ideas for some other options that we should look at, put that there. Do you agree with any of the stuff we presented, and what's your area that you're most concerned about? And so please put that in there, and we'll respond to all those comments to the survey. So with that, I think I will now hand it back to Ajnal Poole, who will then facilitate a live Q&A with the panel, who can hopefully answer most of your questions.
Thank you, Andy. One moment. Thank you, Andy, and thank you everyone that is joining us today. As Andy said, my name is Ajnal Poole. I am the Community and Public Relations Specialist for this project. We appreciate everyone that took the time out to attend this virtual public meeting tonight. As with our other public meetings, I'm sure this is not the preferred method to share information, but with everything going on, we are adapting to what is making sure that we are giving information in the safest way as possible. So we appreciate everyone working with us as we adapt to this new normal. As Andy mentioned earlier, we're going to ask that the panelists please stay on mute until you're answering a question. I want to remind everyone that is watching, if you would like to ask a question, please sign into Gmail and YouTube and ask your question in the chat box. And like Andy mentioned earlier, we recommend signing off of any VPN or organizational servers just to have the best connection. We will be answering questions that we received during the session, as well as questions that we have received prior via phone call, email, or mail. We are going to do our best to get through all the questions that are asked tonight. And however, if your question is not gotten to tonight, please look for information on a Q&A document that will be available on the website. As a note, we are going to try to focus on focus area 6 tonight. And so with that, I am going to kick off our Q&A session with a frequently asked question that we have received a couple times, which is, one moment, I apologize. And I'm going to direct this one to Jenna, who is our Deputy Project Manager. Why is CATS evaluating an extension into Union County?
Thank you, Ajnal. So following the adoption of the locally preferred alternative by the Metropolitan Transit Commission in February of 2019, the town of Indian Trail issued a resolution in support of light rail transit. And that was presented to MTC in April 2019. That resolution indicated that more transportation options were needed to provide greater mobility to the region and to the residents and the rapidly growing population of Indian Trail and Union County. It also stated that Union County stakeholders were expressing a renewed interest in exploring rapid transit options into Mecklenburg County. And it requested that Metropolitan Transit Commission's locally preferred alternative for the Silver Line examine an extension eastward into the town of Indian Trail in Union County for a potential terminus station in Indian Trail. So that was the impetus to include that in our efforts.
Thanks, Jenna. And another question that we frequently get is, how will this project be funded?
Sure. CATS will develop cost estimates through the pre-project and project development phases as we further define the alignments. And once a more complete cost has been determined, that's when we'll start to determine some funding sources. It's our goal to follow a similar path as we did for the LYNX Blue Line and the LYNX Blue Line extension. Those projects were funded through a competitive federal grant program called New Starts. And we're going to pursue that same funding program for the LYNX Silver Line. That funding program does require local and state matches with the federal funding. So just as the Blue Line projects did, we'll need to identify local funding sources. So on the local side, it will require us having a robust conversation with the public about how these projects will be funded.
Thanks, Jenna. A question that we received tonight: given that Union County sends 30,000 to 50,000 commuters a day into the Charlotte metro area and is one of Met County's largest sources of labor, why wouldn't you want to expand into Union County?
Yeah, so thank you. So I mean, that is the purpose of this exercise. This planning study is to evaluate the benefits of serving Union County. Seems to make sense at a high level. Those statistics, are compelling. But we have to make sure that we're providing the appropriate service for Union County. Is it, are people in Union County really just want to commute, or is there all day service requested or needed? So I think we're really kind of looking at what is the right and appropriate kind of service we can provide to Union County to serve the needs of the county. It certainly, it seems like there's a lot of interest, and we want to kind of respond to that interest and provide the appropriate amount of service to Union County. But every one of these alternatives has a trade-off that needs to be weighed. So that's the kind of the process we're doing now.
Jason, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. I thought this would be a good moment to bring up that CATS is partnering with the Central Atlanta Regional Council and a regional transit plan that goes across 12 counties in 2 states. Union County is a part of that. And in that conversation, certainly those 30 to 50,000 commuters that you're talking about have all sorts of potential transit needs into Mecklenburg County. And that regional transit plan called Connect Beyond is looking at high capacity transit corridors in Union County, but also looking at potential bus services and human services transportation. So there's 2 efforts going on in Union County, the Connect Beyond effort, as well as the LYNX Silver Line analysis.
Thank you, Jason. Another question we received this evening: with the various options with pros and cons, how do you form a criteria to select an option? Would the criteria be different or the same for each section of the line?
Yeah, that's a great question. So early in this process, we've kind of had a focus on what we call the benefits and risk decision framework. It's shown in the video, and I can briefly talk about that. But that's a good observation about, different parts of the alignment may have different priorities. And so the priorities in Matthews or Stallings or Indian Trail or the city of Charlotte, are likely to be different. So that's part of the kind of the conversation we have with all of our stakeholders about how to kind of weight some of the kind of the inputs that we use to that decision making. Just at a high level, the 3 benefits that we're trying to evaluate: one, a design option versus a locally preferred alternative is, we want a fast, reliable travel time for the light rail. And we want to have we want to promote equitable transit-oriented development. We want to foster development around our stations, and we want to make sure that local access is very good to our stations and to the community for work, education, other options that are around our stations that we can provide service to. But we want to weigh that against risks, because we're we want to make sure we're putting out a project forward that can compete for federal funds and is moving more towards an implementation mode. So we're going to compare that to environmental risks, because we are seeking to pursue federal funding, and that requires a detailed environmental evaluation. Capital and operating costs are going to be critical for us to weigh and measure to ensure that we can actually put forward a project that we can operate, maintain, and pay for. And we want to make sure that we are well coordinated with any third-party projects that may be directly adjacent, NCDOT, railroads, other big projects that may directly adjacent to us. We need to make sure we're well coordinated with them. And so that's the way that we look at each option versus another, is how does it weigh up, or how does it measure up against one another in that framework.
Thank you, Andy. On these videos, you often mention additional pros and cons not listed, like additional costs for the curve. I assume this is for simplicity's sake for the site. Is there a place I can find the full list?
So that is basically the pros and cons list, is for the most part the benefits and risks framework. We took the benefits, and I agree, the benefits and risk, what we're using is more detailed than the simplicity's sake. We tried to really kind of look at each one of the alignment options that compared to each other to see if they were distinguishing. So does it really matter? Is one that much more expensive than the other, or does it, the curve that much more than another option, to see if there's really distinguishing? That's why we kind of identified that curve, because that's the biggest curve on this particular option. So there are that benefits and risks framework is kind of available in our project website through the video. We showed that a minute ago. So I think that's publicly available.
Thank you, Andy. I'm also going to remind all of our viewers, if you would like to ask the project team a question, please log into your YouTube or Gmail account and leave it in the chat box, and we will get to it. I have a frequently asked question that we get that I'm going to direct back to Jenna Nichols, which is, why is the LYNX Silver Line not going directly into the airport term?
Thanks, Ajano. So how we often think about projects like this, like the Silver Line, it's a multi-generational 50 to 100-year project. And, that kind of investment, we need to keep in mind growth that will happen over those 50 to 100 plus years. And so when we think about the Charlotte Airport of today, it's likely not that Charlotte Airport of the future. It will also continue to grow and expand. The Silver Line will have a premium light rail station at the airport that supports the airport's future land use and development plans. The station will be designed so that passengers that arrive by light rail feel as if they've arrived directly at the airport terminal, because it will be located at a multimodal center that functions like an extension of the main terminal, which means it will have signage similar to the main terminal. It will have terminal services such as baggage check and ticketing. You'll feel as if you've arrived at the airport. From that multimodal transportation center, passengers will hop on a quick and direct people mover that will take them right into the terminal.
Thank you, Jenna. Another question we received this evening. Not trying to sound critical, but why does it seem to take so long to get to construction? As an example, the I-45 Express Lane project went from idea to construction relatively quickly compared to the Silver Line.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the I-45 Express Lane project, so I can't really speak to that. But I will say I worked on the other two light rail projects within the city of Charlotte, the CATS projects, the Blue Line and Blue Line Extension. And it does take a while because these projects are very big and very complicated. Not just the technical nuts and bolts of the track and systems and all that other stuff that goes with it, but all the environmental requirements, federal processes that need to be done real estate acquisition. So, you know, there's a process for everything. So I promise you, we we work to try to deliver these projects as quickly as possible. But because of the size and complexity of them and the likely federal requirements that go with the funding of it, it just takes a while. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I can assure you we have a team of people who are pushing these projects forward as fast as possible.
Thank you, Andy. I have two similar questions that I'm going to read, and I think this would be a good one for Jason. The first one is, will Monroe or Wingate be part of the light rail service? What time frame are we looking at? And the second question is, will there ever be a section connecting the Waxhaw area, even if it means connecting at some other town to change trains? So I think this is a good one about the regional transit plan.
Sure. Great. Thank you, Anjanelle. And yes, you know, as part of the Connect Beyond Regional Transit Initiative, we are looking at all those corridors that would connect those communities. You know, we're evaluating potential for commuter rail on CSX, high capacity transit corridors on Highway 74, and the toll lane project, roads like 601, Highway 16, looking at all those types of corridors for the potential for high capacity transit, be it bus rapid transit or light rail transit. If you go to connect-beyond.com, there is a map on there currently where you can enter comments and provide feedback on the current thinking for corridors within Union County. And we'd be happy to, you know, we'll be doing public outreach in Union County and all the counties as a part of that effort. So that's an ongoing conversation. The Silver Line is looking at the Indian Trail and Stylings, and the regional transit plan is looking at the rest of the county.
Thank you, Jason. How likely is the Union County extension to happen to Indian Trail? I also believe Monroe needs an extension, if not now, then longer term, to provide a more efficient transportation option than a bus service.
Go ahead, Jason. This is probably more up your alley.
Yeah, I think, you know, if we think about all the different types of trips that need to occur within Union County, that there's opportunities to look at, you know, bus rapid transit, look at commuter rail, and of course, we're looking at Indian Trail and Stylings right now. So I think to answer the question of the extension or other services to Monroe, I think that's a part of that regional conversation, which we're accepting comments on right now. And it's our goal to have those recommendations for all those high capacity transit corridors early next year.
Thank you, Jason. Will there be a pedestrian and bicycle link from Indian Trail across 485 to Matthews if the Silver Line is extended to Indian Trail?
Sure. Thanks, Anjanelle. And yes, you know, the third part of the Silver Line effort, you know, combined with the design services and the LYNX Silver Line TOD study, there's also a rail trail study that's looking at the entire 26 miles of where we can fit a pedestrian and bike facility to parallel the entire alignment where possible. And so we're coordinating with the towns and also with the design team to make sure that experience can occur. So that is a part of this effort right now.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to go to some of the frequently asked questions that we have received. Can one of you all describe what early scoping is and why we are doing it?
Sure. So early scoping is a process that we go through that the FTA often recommends on large projects to really get that early feedback from all the federal agencies and partners, including local partners, who are going to weigh in and be part of the approval and permitting of this project. So as you can imagine, a project of this nature and scale will we'll need permits from, say, the Fish and Wildlife. So we'll need to verify that there's, no endangered species in the area that we're building, and that there's any water resource that will take a permitting process as well. Also, the local towns are also part of that as well. They were part of the early scoping process. So this is really a project of this size. FTA often recommends that we go through a process like this to really kind of start vetting early, so that everyone has time to really think through the impacts of the project and understand it, so that it kind of expedites the permitting process later. It's really kind of the first step on a big project like this into the environmental process.
Thank you, Andy. Will I be able to take a train directly from Stallings to the Gateway Station to take Amtrak? Has the Silver Line team coordinated with the Southeast High-Speed Rail Corridor Plan to enhance service to a future high-speed rail option to Charlotte?
That's a great question. Yeah, so you will be able to take it from, if we build the light rail the whole way to Indian Trail, you will be able to take a train from Stallings to Charlotte Gateway Station, where the Amtrak station is currently being constructed. We are working, the NCDOT rail team as part of our coordination team. So we're meeting with the appropriate folks at NCDOT rail all the time. We have a long history of working with NCDOT rail on the Southeast High-Speed Rail project. That project was also under planning whenever we were designing the Blue Line extension. So we have a good understanding of what that project is. And so I feel like it will be well coordinated with that team moving forward.
Thank you, Andy. Another frequently question that we get concerns about traffic. Will traffic be a concern during the building of this project? If someone wants to touch on that topic.
So I think that comment is about traffic impacts of construction. And there certainly will be some traffic impacts of construction, assuming we are within or adjacent to a road. So if we're inserting a light rail into a street of any kind, it will require the construction or reconstruction in some way of that road. So maintenance of traffic will be a big priority for us. So we'll have our designers and engineers will be design maintenance of traffic plans, so that we can ensure that traffic can keep moving. So, but however, anytime you're rebuilding a road, there will be impacts to traffic. That's just the nature of it, and there will be dirt and dust, and we'll do our best to keep it clean and keep things moving. But I think the nature of the project this size there will be some traffic impacts during construction.
Thank you, Andy. Another question we received this evening. Might a maintenance facility be located in Union County if the line serves that area?
Well, that's something we're evaluating. So we're looking at options. One of the early tasks we're trying to determine is where a maintenance facility might go. We certainly will need one. We haven't identified any specific sites yet. So I think that's something that we'll be, looking at and evaluating as we go on. So I guess possibly if we can find a suitable site in Union County that meets our needs, then yeah, maybe.
Thank you, Andy. Again, I want to encourage all of our viewers. We have a few more minutes left. If you have any questions you want to ask the project team, please put them in the YouTube chat box. I have a frequently asked question that I think would be a good one for John Howard, who's leading our TOD effort. How and when will station locations be chosen?
Thank you, Ajanelle. So as Andy mentioned before, we have a transit-oriented development study that's running kind of parallel to this design effort. And when the final alignment is selected early next year, the TOD team will then start station area planning along the entire 26 miles. And part of that effort will include education about what TOD means. It's not a one-size-fits-all. When a lot of people think about transit, they think about the Blue Line and South End. But understanding that in this 26 miles with 3 different jurisdictions, not every station will be the same. There'll be different contexts, there'll be different community goals, different land use policies to look at. So we'll be communicating with the public often in the next year or two about what those goals are, and talk about land use, talk about what makes stations function properly in terms of having enough connections, talking about the right land use mix, talk about, again, infrastructure and how to make these stations really operate properly. So we'll be kicking that off in earnest early next year.
Thank you, John. We have another frequently asked question, which is, will there be a lot of railroad interaction with this project?
Yeah, so there will definitely be some railroad interaction, freight railroad with this, depending on the options that we pursue. It's absolutely, there'll be at least 2 to 3 crossings of the CSX railroad in certain locations. There will be a crossing. When I say a crossing, it would be either an aerial crossing over or a crossing under, no at-grade crossings, meaning we won't cross the freight railroad at the same elevation. So there will be certainly some of CSX, and there will be at least one of Norfolk Southern near Center City. So yes.
Thanks, Andy. A question we received this evening: might there be increased bus service connecting the rest of Union County to Silver Line stations for people who might not want to drive to the park and ride, but don't live close enough to the line to walk?
Thank you, Janelle. I can take that. So, just like the LYNX Blue Line and the Blue Line extension, CAT's at a bus rail integration plan. And so this project, in partnership with the Connect Beyond effort, will be developing something similar for the entire line. So we would do that in Gaston County all the way through Charlotte and Matthews, and of course, as well in Union County, because each station will need to have those bus connections. So we'll have to look for places for buses to stage, for bus stop. Transit amenities would be all part of that conversation. So yes, we will develop a bus rail integration plan.
Thank you, Jason. How would a Silver Line extension to Union County affect the potential for future commuter rail to Union County?
So I don't think that the two necessarily aren't completely related at this point. I think we think about that's more of a question of trip purpose. Commuter rail is typically for longer haul type of trips. And so, I think you're 20, you're 30, you're 50 miles out maybe from the city center in downtown Charlotte is more suited for commuter rail. Whereas, light rail is, for that 10 to 15 mile kind of trip purpose. So I think it's too soon to tell for all that. We're still in the early stages with the regional plan, and commuter rail is going to be part of that conversation in a regional sense across all 12 counties.
Thank you, Jason. I believe that we answered all the questions that we received this evening. So I am going to ask one more question before we wrap up our Q&A for the evening. And it's also a frequently asked question that we received, which is, what are the next steps after MTC adoption? And that will be our last question for the evening.
So, so the process moving forward is after I'll talk a little bit about where we are. So we're in the process after this, we're presenting these options to the public, and then receiving input. Then we'll go through that and evaluate those along with some of our other details for how we look at these, and then come back to the public in the early 21 timeframe, where we present the refined locally preferred alternative. We have several options right now, and we're striving to get down to one option to get public input on, then to take that back to the Metropolitan Transit Commission for adoption in early 21. So once we get that adoption, then the next step is really to move into the 15% engineering phase. And so we start to get into, now that we've identified the alignment we want to pursue, we'll start to get into a little bit more detailed look of what that alignment is. And so start getting into more of the engineering phase, and then continue to refine that engineering, moving into the environmental process, and hopefully into the federal pipeline.
So it sounds like that's the end of our questions. Ajnal, oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, well, so thank you all for attending tonight. I hope everybody learned some good information and felt like this was a valuable process and a good use of your time. We'll be compiling all of the comments and questions that we've received tonight into a document and posting, and we'll be addressing them and then posting that on our website. The website is, you can see it on the screen here, it's ridetransit.org/LYNX Silverline. And that's also where you can go and review the alignments and see the stuff that Andy had presented and make your comments, provide feedback. Just a reminder that early scoping, that comment period ends October 14th. And at that time, the mapping tool that we shared tonight, that will no longer be available after October 14th. So make sure you get there and make some comments and check it out. You can also send us an email if you have any questions at lynxsilverline@publicinput.com, or you can give us a call at 704-336-RIDE. That's 704-336-7433. Or you can send us a letter to CATS, care of Ms. Ajna Poole, 600 East 4th Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202. Again, thank you all for your time and your focus tonight, and we appreciate all of the great comments and your time. Please stay tuned and stay involved. You can find out project updates at our project website, again, ridetransit.org/LYNX Silverline. And just really, we want to emphasize how important it is to us to get your feedback. It's really critical in helping us make the right decisions moving forward. So thank you.